Hello everyone, Eric Hörst coming to you from a little different location today. Not my typical home work spot, but instead here at a Starbucks drive-thru in Rifle, Colorado, where thank goodness it's a beautiful day. The sun is out and I want to go climbing. So I'm going to keep this one short. If you have a couple of training questions, anybody out there tuning in here, got a quick question, Coach Hörst will try to give you the best answer I can. And I know this is kind of last minute. I didn't give the usual notice to the followers that I had a training cafe coming this morning, but I thought, it's Monday. This is what I try to do every other Monday when possible. And so I was coming in to get my coffee and I thought, why not do a quick training cafe before I head back up to Rifle Canyon. If you've not been here, of course, Rifle is a famous sport climbing area in the United States. It was one of the early spots to really be bolted up and turned into a sport crag in the early 1990s. Had some of the nation's first 514s were here. Now, one of the few 515s was put up here last fall by Joe Kinder, called Kinder Cakes. And there's a lot of high-end 14s that are quite famous, like The Crew and Shadow Boxing and Bad Girls Club. And so if you're a high-end climber, there's certainly some stuff to work on here. And if you're more of a typical climber like myself, well, there's world-class 511, 512, 513s that are often cryptic and confusing, and they're not so easy to on-site or do in a go or two because there's a lot of nuance involved in climbing at Rifle. So it's something that challenges me and I have to set the bar a little lower when I come to Rifle. And especially for a short trip like this, just about a week or so, I don't want to get in deep on anything too hard, but hopefully just have some fun climbing. And it's been very unsettled, as it often can be here in the Rockies. Afternoon thunderstorms. In fact, yesterday it was a thunderstorm at 6 a.m., at noontime, at 5 in the afternoon. I never got to climb because just when you thought it was going to finally dry out, the next storm hit. And so today, hopefully, the forecast will be correct and we'll have a dry day and just kind of climb in the shade, and it's not so bad. Though I guess maybe there'll be some moisture in the air and the humidity could be less than ideal. But hey, I'm here, might as well climb regardless of how hot or humid it may be this afternoon. So as we get started here, anybody tuning in, you want to type in a question, feel free to put it into the comments box and I'll give you a brief answer. Of course, Training Cafe, it's about sipping coffee and talking about training and climbing together. So if you have your cup of coffee or other beverage, let's sip together. Climbers around the world unite over coffee and the love of rock climbing. Before I get started here on training type stuff, let me first comment on this past weekend's World Cup, which because it was raining, I was able to drive down to town here and get internet and watch a bit of the World Cup. And it was one of the best showings ever, perhaps ever, I guess, for American climbers. And, of course, the World Cup is every event has a very strong international field with top climbers from Japan and throughout Europe and North America. And historically, some of those European countries have really dominated, and the Japanese and, recently Korean and Chinese as well. But this event, the Americans really shined. And so first in the bouldering, Natalia Grossman got her 5th bouldering gold medal of the season, 5 in a row for her. So incredible. She wins the bouldering series gold because the bouldering season is now done, and it's going to be more of lead climbing World Cup going forward. Now, of course, I must point out that Janja Gambrit, who is, arguably the world's best female competition climber the last few years, did not compete in most of the bouldering events this year. She just kind of needed a break. And so it would have been interesting to have Janja in the mix to go head-to-head against Natalia, because Natalia dominated. But I'll tell you, not far behind Natalia this season was Brooke Raboutou, also of the United States, who medaled a number of times, could have had gold in a couple of occasions if a few things went a bit different. So Brooke was climbing very, very strong, and she and, of course, Natalia are best friends and have trained together in Boulder, Colorado at ABC over the years and know each other well. Also shining this year, Hannah Moyle from Germany, really coming on strong. She got silver at this past weekend's event in bouldering, and she also medaled at Salt Lake City and has been very strong this season. And Miho Nanaka from Japan as well, she got bronze this past weekend, and she has been a super strong climber, and I think got the silver, I believe, in the bouldering series. Brooke Raboutou got the bronze in the bouldering series. Now on to the men quickly. Colin Duffy won gold in bouldering, young climber, also from Boulder, Colorado, has been this year climbing strong. He gets his gold in bouldering. A Korean climber, Lee, got silver, and Ogato, who's been on the podium many times before, got the bronze in the men's bouldering. But in terms of the bouldering, gold for Grossman and Duffy, both from the United States. I'm not sure that's ever happened before, to have both the male and female being American gold medalists. And we shift gears to the lead climbing, which happened yesterday, the lead finals. And Yanya is competing in the lead season this year, and she won. So another gold for Yanya Gambrit. Seo from Korea, young climber, I think 18 years old, climbing very strong the last 2 years. She got silver, and Brooke Raboutou bronze. So Brooke shining brightly on the lead climbing stage. Natalia Grossman came in sixth, so she made finals, but just slipped early and didn't probably perform up to her desires in lead climbing. But hey, she's won 5 golds in bouldering, so we'll cut her a break. She's a fantastic climber, and I should point out, a PhysiVantage nutrition athlete. So we're totally psyched as a brand to have Natalia on the team and climbing so strong. Men's lead climbing, well, guess what? Gold medal went to Colin Duffy, and this, I believe, is the first time ever in World Cup competition, 30 plus years, that the same person has won the gold in a single event in both bouldering and lead. Which you'd think Andra would have done that over the years, but I don't think it's ever lined up. He's won golds in both formats, but never in the same event. So Colin Duffy, kind of a historic win for him, and I'm sure there's many more coming. He's a young climber, I believe 19 or 20 years old, and so many more golds to come for him. Silver in this event in Innsbruck for lead climbing, Ao from Japan, a younger, newer climber, and Jessie Grupper, another American, got third place. And Jessie's kind of doesn't get the publicity, or isn't quite as well known for whatever reason, but he's an incredible comp climber, and he's climbed 515A outside, and he won bronze here at this World Cup event. So congrats to all the climbers, but big kudos to the American climbers who did so well in this event. Okay, so enough talking about competition climbing. Let's talk about what most of us are personally interested in, and that is training in the gym and hopefully climbing outside as often as possible. So on to the questions here. And again, I have a lot of background noise here. I have a lavalier mic clipped on, hopefully capturing more of my voice and less of the surrounding FedEx truck sitting next to me here with its engine running. So hopefully you can hear me here okay. And on we go here. First question from Greg. Any 12C, 12Ds you'd recommend at 10 sleep? Also, what guidebook would you recommend for 10 sleep? Well, funny you should ask, because I'm heading there for a week or maybe 2 in July. I usually try to spend a few weeks in Wyoming between Lander and 10 sleep each summer, because if you're climbing at 9,000 feet, it's a pretty cool place. Rifle here, the climbing's at 7,000, so it's definitely warmer here than it is in the higher limestone crags in Wyoming. But to answer your question, 512 is a great grade at 10 sleep. The routes tend to be near vertical, one way or the other, just a few degrees. If you go up to Crag 6, there's a load of great routes from 12B to 13B. So I would recommend Crag 6. I think there's a route called Thagagra, which is a 12D, maybe soft 13A, something like that, that is fantastic. A few routes to the right of that is a great bouldery 12C. If you can get through a low boulder, you can probably send the route quickly. Or maybe that's 12D. Check that out. And then up at the French Cattle Ranch, which is Upper Canyon on the left side, driving uphill, there's a ton of routes in the 12A to 13A range that are fantastic. Maybe the best is Esplanada, which is a really hard 12D, which some people think might be 13A. It's a classic for sure, so check out Esplanada. The biggest issue if you go there in July will be the crowds, because the word is out on 10 Sleep being a wonderful climbing destination, and it does get crowded in the summer. Okay, next up, what exercises would you recommend for pulling on small holds outdoors? Will just hangboarding translate to pulling? Well, yes and no. I mean, hangboarding is a great way to start as long as you're training on the first pad. If you're training deeper holds on a hangboard, then that does not translate so well to small crimping outside. But if you're grabbing holds that are, let's say, 20 millimeters or less, where you're isolating the DIP joint, then the muscles being used are the same as you would be using in small crimping outdoors. So you are training the muscles effectively. Now, when you get on really small crimps outside, let's say less than 10 millimeters, and especially when you get down to 6 or 5 millimeters, skin and pulp, which is the fleshiness at the end of your tip, become real factors in how well you can apply force and stick. And that is something that the hangboard, hanging on 20 millimeters doesn't do you any good on. You need to actually get on smaller holds. Now, there are some hangboards that have 6 millimeter edges. They're tough to train on. They're painful, they're slippery, or sharp, one or the other. If they're not slippery, then they're sharp. So while you can dabble on that kind of thing, it's tough to do a lot of training on those tiny edges indoors. So kind of you have to train the muscles indoors by using more comfortable holds, 10 to 20 millimeters of depth. And then as often as you can, get outside and boulder and climb on smaller edges. And the more you do that, if you can get outside twice a week, let's say, your skin and the pulp will adapt a bit. I mean, there's some genetics obviously at play when it comes to pulp and skin conditions and sweatiness and all that. But I can't stress enough that there are some very strong climbers. Okay, am I back? I lost my internet here, unfortunately. Hopefully you've hung in there and we can survive this little hurdle here. I'm kind of on-siting here today, you might say, using a Wi-Fi in a public location, not knowing what could happen. Yes, thank you, Randy. He says I'm back. So thank you for everybody for hanging on there. So just kind of finishing up that question is, you can train the muscles indoors quite effectively, but when it gets to the skin factors and the pulp on small edges, you need to climb outside. And so, if you can do that a couple of days a week, that will give you, the strength and the skin to hopefully climb well on small holds. Okay, on we go to the next question. He's added Metatarsalgia to the list of issues. I'm doing shockwave to hopefully make it recover. Do you know what can be done with climbing shoes to help out? And yeah, I mean, some people have foot issues with tight climbing shoes, and there's a lot of factors. Obviously the shape of your foot. Genetics are a factor, and just the types of shoes you've worn over the years, like women in high heels, obviously is hard on the feet. And so I really don't have any advice to give you here. Extracorporal shockwave therapy has been shown to be beneficial for some injuries, connective tissue injuries, perhaps some joint injuries. So I think it's worth a shot, but I'm not sure what else to say other than I know in a few cases of climbers that have had surgery to try to correct a toe issue to make climbing less painful. But otherwise, you probably have to move to softer shoes that will stretch and form to your feet, and kind of through trial and error, hopefully find something that will work. Okay, moving on to Michael. What do you think about swimming? Is it good as antagonist training, good for aerobic activity compared to running? I certainly have nothing against swimming. I don't know a lot of climbers who do it as a regular training modality. Of course, it would affect the skin if you are a daily swimmer, let's say. It might not be ideal for your skin conditions. To do it once or twice a week as an aerobic activity, I think is good. Anything that gets your heart rate elevated, kind of that zone 2 aerobic training, generalized training, whether it's running, biking, swimming, is good for strengthening your, stroke volume, moving blood more efficiently around your body, and that has been shown in research to enhance climbing performance, especially in route climbing, where you can recover quicker and have a stronger aerobic energy system that leads to more endurance. And so doing some generalized aerobic training is something I am a believer in for especially route climbers, but I think maybe all climbers can benefit from it. A couple of days a week, not excessively. So I would say running is probably the best. You're less likely to maybe add muscle on your legs running than biking. Swimming, I don't know that your body comp changes too much from swimming. I think if you enjoy swimming, then that's a good thing to do. The antagonist muscle training, I think you want to do some targeted exercises like push-ups and dips and things like that, rotator cuff exercises a couple days a week. I don't know that the swimming would be enough to cover you there. Any plans to add more flavors of Supercharged Collagen in Europe? Yeah, well, in the US, we have 4 flavors of Supercharged Collagen. In Europe, because of the difficulties, we have to manufacture the product there. We can't just export it. And so we started off with Chocolate and Unflavored in Europe. And that's it for this year. I hope we can add a 3rd, perhaps a 4th flavor next year. But I also want to bring some of our other products to Europe. But right now we have the Endurex and the Supercharged Collagen and the Crush supplement available in Europe through Epic TV and the Banana Finger stores. And we will grow that product line as we can. But it's a very expensive proposition to launch a product line like this in Europe because of the regulation and the labeling requirements. We have to pretty much start from scratch over there to do things. And so it's quite expensive. But we are taking it one step at a time, and I hope we can continue to grow in Europe as big and and be as impactful as we have been here in the American climbing scene, where pretty much the majority of top American climbers and thousands of recreational climbers are now using PhysiVantage products, which makes me so psyched, that over the last 4 years, we've grown this product line from basically our kitchen at home to being internationally relevant, and top climbers like Natalia Grossman or Jonathan Segrest using our products. And I should add the Café Craft guys are on board. Patrick and Dicky from Café Craft in Nuremberg, the coaches of Alex Megos, they are using PhysiVantage products and loving it. So we're excited to have them joining our team as well. And we have a big sale coming up for at least US customers. This week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, a big sale coming up. If you're on our email list, you'll hear about it very, very soon. Okay, on we go here. Christian says, currently having some slight tenderness on my middle finger. It's tender where you press against the sides of it. Is it okay to keep climbing if I climb on mostly big holds? Well, a couple things could be going on. If it's the side, the very side of the DIP joint, then that's ligament type pain oftentimes. People that crack climb, if you're pulling a pocket sideways or torquing your fingers side to side, you can sprain a ligament, or in a worst case scenario, tear a ligament. Tenderness, if it's mild, isn't generally a big deal, and it might be something you can climb through. Now, of course, the infamous A2 pulley, which is what holds the flexor tendon against the base of the finger here, often tears on the side, so it can reveal as pain that seems to be more on the side than on the bottom, but it would tend to be isolated to one side or the other. So I don't want to rule out that it could be a tendon pulley rather than a ligament. And ultimately, if it gets worse, you want to see a physician or at least a physiotherapist to look at it. A lot of these physicians and therapists are now armed with ultrasound devices that they can put against your finger and have you flex against a hold and see if the flexor tendon is, pulling away from the bone more than is normal. And in that way, quickly diagnose what is going on. So if the pain is mild, a 1 or 2 out of 10, you may be able to tape it and climb cautiously on it on bigger holds. If it's any more painful than that, I would really dial back the climbing and shift into more of a rehab mode for a couple of weeks. Again, make sure you're getting enough protein of any type, but the Supercharged Collagen is ideal for helping support connective tissue health and supplementing your rehab to help accelerate return to climbing. Steve Towson, tips on training while stuck in a hotel room at work with no access to gyms, not even a hotel gym. Can't leave the hotel because of COVID. He's in Asia. Yeah, Steve's a great climber that is often Asian-based and is semi-quarantined, I guess, at a hotel, and that's a tough one. Any body weight exercise that you can do includes your way of training. With sling trainers, obviously push-ups and core training. You can do a variety of things similar to that in your hotel room. Maybe rig some type of a pull-up. If you don't have access to a gym at the hotel, then you don't have weights or machines to help you out. Going outside and walking and running, I guess would be a good thing to burn calories and freshen the mind a little bit. But yeah, you need to be creative. All those handheld squeezing devices that you can buy in like weightlifting stores, haven't been shown to really be helpful in elevating climbing specific fitness, grip strength and such. It's just too different from how we grab the rock. And that being said, if it's all you would have to your access, if it's something you could do to kind of get a forearm pump, I think it would certainly be better than nothing. That's one you'll just have to be creative, Steve, and try to do the best you can. And hopefully this COVID thing will someday leave us alone. Let us get back to kind of normal. Next question. I have a classic medium A2 pulley injury. I'm struggling with returning to climbing uncommon. These A2 pulley injuries are pesky, for a passionate climber. And if it's mid-season, like it is in many locations now, you want to be out. And, it's a real fine line whether you can tape it up or, and try to climb through it, or whether you have to withdraw from performance climbing and shift to a rest and rehab mode. The cautious, prudent thing would be to do just that, to stop climbing for a few weeks and shift into rest and rehab mode. But a lot of people do that for a week or two and then come back to climbing and re-injure, and they get in this cycle where this A2 pulley injury can last 6 months, let's say. Whereas if you just stopped, took a 4 to 6 week break and did the rest and rehab, maybe you could work through it all in one shot, but you don't really know that going into it. And so it's tough calculus to solve, I'm sorry to say. I do not sell training protocols. There are a number of people who do. Perhaps right now the best source would be Tyler Nelson. I don't know what he charges at his Camp 4 base camp, but he definitely knows his stuff and has put a lot of thought into developing these protocols. You could contact Carrie Cooper. She's also in Salt Lake City, coincidentally, a physiotherapist who has a lot of experience with this type of thing. And if you're in Europe, of course, the German doctors deal with these finger injuries all the time and really know their stuff. Volker Schoeffel and his crew over there out of Bamberg. And there are others, Klaus Eila from Austria, another super knowledgeable person. Reach out to one of those guys and they would be able to give you the most evidence-based protocols to go on. There's a lot of anecdote, a lot out there amongst climbers, do this, do that. But you want to go to one of the experts and find out what has really been proven to work. And you might want to look into a pulley splint. A lot of people struggling with pulley injuries, or certainly people with fresh pulley injuries, I think should wear a pulley splint. The German doctors have been using them for a number of years. They've helped climbers like Jessica Pills and Alex Megos return from pulley tears in a matter of 3 or 4 months, which is incredible to come back that fast, to get back to world-class level. And so the pulley splint can be quite helpful. And so that would be something to maybe look into, because you can wear it when you climb, at least as you're working back into big hold climbing. You're not going to climb at your limit, I don't think, with a pulley splint on, but it is kind of a something to help you make that transition from off the rock rehab back into some active climbing. So good luck on that one. Okay, and some comments here that the stream is back. That's good to know. And I'm going to wrap this up very soon. If you have a final question, type it in now here. What do you think about intermittent fasting to improve climbing performance? I've experimented with that, and it wasn't the best thing for me, because I train hard. I do, when I'm in training mode, a training block, I do a lot of 2-a-day training where I do a morning and afternoon or evening workout. And so to do, say, the common 16-8 fasting, where you fast for 16 hours and eat 8 hours, it was just too long to go. And I felt I was holding up my recovery. If I'm doing a morning workout, say from 9 to 10:30 a.m. for 90 minutes, let's say a fingerboard workout at home, then to not eat immediately after that workout to get 25 grams of protein and to get some carbohydrate into my system would be counterproductive, both in terms of recovery, strength gains, connective tissue support and such. But if I'm going to work out a second time later in the day, I need to replenish some glycogen in the climbing muscles. And so it wasn't for me, even though I gave it a few months and a few variations of it. I think perhaps if you had a period where you weren't training hard and weren't climbing hard, kind of an off-season situation, maybe that would be a decent thing to do. And maybe I'll revisit it, like during early winter season, Maybe heading into the holidays, Thanksgiving to Christmas, where I tend to ease back on my training and do more family stuff and holiday activities. And if I know I'm going to a party in the evening, then doing an 18-hour fast before that dinner party, let's say, hey, that could be a really good way to do it, to keep my calorie count not too excessive. And so I think there is some utility to it. Certainly the whole topic of fasting, there's some great research in its value for longevity. Even longer fasts of a few days, that yield autophagy, that kind of help kill off dysfunctional cells in the body. It has been shown to be healthy and good for longevity. But what is the best thing for performance, for climbing performance, for recovery from training, isn't necessarily the best thing for longevity, and vice versa. And so for an older climber like me, it is kind of, when I look at all the research for both performance and for longevity, I want to do both. I want to perform well and recover and train hard as an older climber, but I also want to hopefully have longevity and live to be 100 and maybe climb hard to 70 or 80. And so, I kind of have interest in both those topics, but again, there's conflicting information. Calorie restriction is a good thing for longevity. The mice that they feed less food to live a lot longer than the mice that they give and make available unlimited food to. And there's tons of research along that line. High protein diets are great for athletes, but actually could be counterproductive in the long term when it comes to longevity. Whereas lesser amounts of protein could be maybe better for lifespan, but not necessarily for health span. And so, it's a very complicated topic to discuss and beyond the scope of what I want to go into here. So I see they're deciding to mow the grass here behind me. So I don't know if you can hear that, but maybe that's a good time for me to sign off here. From Rifle, Colorado, time for me to drive up the canyon and do some rock climbing with my son. So if you've got coffee, raise your cup one more time. Let's sip together in the spirit of climbing and training for climbing. Thank you for joining me here today. I'll try to keep doing this every 2 weeks if I can on Mondays. I'm going to be heading up to Wyoming soon, and so I don't know if I'll have connectivity to do it there 2 weeks from today, but I will try if at all possible. And I'm wishing you a wonderful summer. Hopefully you have the opportunity to get outside and do some climbing, maybe travel somewhere. The gas prices are brutal. I was commenting to my son, every trip up and down the canyon here is like a $20 bill of gas, which is just insane. But hopefully it's not the new normal, but I'm afraid it could be. So we will deal with it and proceed as best as we can. And conserve gas the way I conserve energy as an older climber on a route. I guess that will be the new MO for me. So in any case, wishing you a great week, and we'll see you in hopefully 2 weeks. Bye-bye.